Gratitude. Thank you for joining Chats Along the Path with discussions about the 7 transformative practices of the 7-Way Path. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, inviting you to heal, grow, and transform with the 7-Way Path. Thank you for walking the path, and best wishes for your journey. Nature. Welcome to this Chat Along the Path, and we are here with Laura Wall. Laura is a spiritual life coach, speaker, podcast host, best-selling author, Reiki practitioner, and the founder of Hearts of Healing Center, a nonprofit organization devoted to bringing more love, light, healing, and hope to the world. Through her work as a coach and a healing guide, she addresses the whole person, mind, body, heart, and soul. She is passionate about reminding her followers and clients to live out their divine potential, embracing their truth, wielding their superpowers, and chasing their joy. And she is here to talk with us about ritual. Laura, welcome to Chats Along the Path. Such an honor to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. So please let's jump right into talking about ritual. Can you please talk to us about what ritual means to you?
Absolutely. Ritual means a lot to me, so I will try to start slowly and move along. I first discovered the power of ritual when I was a nutrition coach. And I realized that most people didn't have food problems, they had mindset problems. And to shift their mindsets, they needed to form new habits. And so a habit is really just a trigger, an action, and then some sort of reward at the end of it. So these could be positive or negative. So for example, you walk through the door at 4 o'clock, you're really tired, that's the trigger. The action is you go over to the cookie jar, the reward is eating a delicious Oreo. So you could have, like I said, positive triggers or negative triggers. Now, as we're talking about rituals, rituals are really just a set of habits all in a line. So they are a collection, if you will, of intentional practices, of intentional habits. And when I think of ritual, what I think about is doing a series of things that leads me to a desired outcome. Usually it's a shift in my energy, in the way that I feel in my body, the way I feel in my heart. And I believe that ritual is what changes the mundane into the magical. So you could, sit down and light a candle and read a book, or if you brought in ritual to it, you would set an intention. You might light a certain candle. You might say a certain prayer. You might use a candle that has a certain fragrance that takes you on a trip and you have a memory connected to it. You may be reading a particular book that, again, connects with that memory or connects with an emotional outcome that you're wanting. So I love using rituals to set the stage for things as well as to change my state. And I use rituals every single day. I probably over-ritualize things. I think I'm being simple because I'm like, oh, it's just a little 4-step ritual. And then I'm like, I'll add one more thing. I'll add one more thing. And then 18 steps later, and then I'm late for something. I'm like, you ought to really pull it back.
Well, that is really great. Thank you so much. I love the way that you have really broken down ritual for us, talking about the triggers, talking about habits. Sometimes people ask, what is the difference between a habit and a ritual? And I think that you have really clearly explained the difference to us and this important idea of intention and even magic. Can you say more, or would you like to talk more,
Sure.
Laura, about that idea of the intention?
Yeah, when I think of a habit, I think of something that we've done so many times that it's automated. So the subconscious is running the program. It's happened to you. You're tired. You're like, I'm going to stop at the grocery store. You get in the car and you drive straight home. You forgot to stop at the grocery store because you have such a strong habit of driving from point A to point B. With a ritual, you're actually slowing down and bringing a lot of awareness to every part of what you're doing. And as such, you are heightening your senses, you are heightening the meaning of it, and you are more deeply connecting with each and every part of it. Not that you need to ritualize going to the grocery store, but maybe you want to. I believe that, again, bringing that awareness to it is what makes the difference between just a regular old habit and a ritual. The big thing is habit is automated and a ritual is intentional. You're going to do a certain thing or a set of certain things to celebrate. You're going to do a set of things to honor someone who's passed. They're usually around life events, but again, like I said, you can bring them in and create your own for your own purposes, which I've done quite a bit in my life, including my morning ritual is pretty lengthy, but my favorite one is my spiritual practice. And that is basically, I'm kind of taking my my wake up state, which is kind of, what am I doing? I'm kind of groggy. What's the plan for the day? And I'm putting that on hold. And then I am using the ritual to bring awareness to what my heart says, to what my spirit says, to what's most important, to where I can serve in the world, and connecting with those things. And again, by going through a few steps. So I did bring some props that I can tell you about. And with that, you know, as I go through those steps, it takes me away from getting caught up in that habitual loop of, oh, I've got to return that email. Oh, I've got to make that call. Oh, I need to go hurry up and let the dog out. But rather you're sinking into the moment. And to me, the biggest thing about ritual is the expansion of it. You're actually connecting beyond yourself, beyond your own mind. You're connecting, I feel like, to the universe, to possibilities, to the divine.
Oh, yeah, that is beautiful. I love that. Thank you so very much. And, you know, I just had the image of, I personally love going to the grocery store. And so, you know, ritualizing that experience, yes, to me, you know, some people hate going to the grocery store. Some people love it. I'm one of those people who love it. And so when you're talking about ritualizing going to the grocery store, yes, I'm on it.
I'm one of those weirdos too. I love going to the grocery store. To me, it represents abundance. It represents pleasure, because food is pleasure. And it takes me back to one of the first freedoms I ever had when I moved out of the house as a young adult. Was I got to go to the grocery store and pick out everything. And as a result, I recognized, oh my gosh, I can have chocolate ice cream for breakfast before I go to college, and there's no one to stop me. So I probably do have some rituals involved in going to the grocery store. But I do find, like I said, ritual to me are very useful for changing your state and, again, connecting with something bigger than us. There are a few things. So if you're listening and you're wondering, well, how do I make a ritual? I do have some pointers for you. So as you heard from my stories, the first thing that you want to do is you want to acknowledge, what are you trying to achieve? Like, you know, like I said, is it a celebration? Is it a connection to your imagination? Is it you want to be able to be a better writer? Are you honoring someone, whether, you know, a birthday party or someone that's departed? And thinking about the different elements that you like that make you feel happy or calm. Again, we're tapping into our emotional center. We want to bring all of those in, and then we want to bring in all of our senses. So finding what is the intention, what is the purpose. Number two, finding all of the elements. It's kind of like making your own recipe. Number three, this is the big one, is slowing down. And that's really hard for people, I know, these days. I consider my rituals to be almost meditative, because I do go at such a slow pace. And when we slow down, that's when time expands, and that's when we really get some ahas, or we have a deeper connection. And then last but not least, after you've completed the ritual, sitting and pausing once again and observing what happened. So for example, I recently performed some Reiki for a client who was making her transition from physical to non-physical. She was passing away. Now, I could have shown up, done the Reiki, got in the car, driven off, gone to the grocery store, moved on to the next ritual, moved on to the next thing. But what I find is after I do involve myself in some very intentional, maybe bigger rituals, not my daily ones, I like to sit down and reflect and maybe journal a little bit or even just go over it in my mind. Because part of what I've learned from the work that I do as an aroma freedom practitioner is a memory, especially one that's around a highly charged emotion, is formed over a 4 to 5 day window. So if you think about it, our subconscious it's like the ultimate tape recorder. It's recording all video, all audio, all the time. So it's taking in all of this data. And we are experiencing something, but we may not notice all of the data. You know, if we go to a waterfall, we may see the waterfall, we may miss the butterfly that's landing on the rock. Not our subconscious, it remembered that. Maybe you didn't realize you saw the butterfly until you looked back through your photos and you had captured some of those extra moments. So upon reflection, you can look back through the ritual and you can grab onto the pieces that are most important to you, and you can really intentionally create the memory that you want to have around that ritual, so that the most meaningful parts, you know, you may call them the best parts, or maybe they're the saddest parts. Maybe that's still meaningful to you, but those are the things that you hold on to. And the rest is going to, like I said, it'll get stored in your subconscious, but when you have a conscious memory of it, you're going to bring up that video, if you will. It's kind of like the editing process. You know, when you have a bunch of photos and you put them in a little video, you know, you're going to shrink some of the little video pieces down. You might cut out a few of the photos that are blurry. Same thing in that reflection process. You're able to review that ritual and really highlight what means something to you, so that when you return to it, that comes back to you and that same feeling comes back to you as well. That was a lot of words, Christian. I'm going to let you talk.
Well, wow, Laura, I was just going to say that's a lot, and a lot of really fascinating stuff in there. So I want to say thank you for bringing that to us. It's almost mesmerizing, really just so fascinating. So I have lots of questions here for sure. And I'm wondering, you know, to me, the way in which you're describing ritual makes it sound so transformative, and that the power of ritual is really transformative based upon the way in which you're talking about it. And I'm really fascinated about this 4 to 5 days. Now, okay, if it's okay, I'd like to get just slightly off track and just ask about that. Can you tell us more about that? Because that sounds really powerful.
Yes. So some of the education that I received around my training for being an aroma freedom practitioner involved memory. So our nasal, our olfactory nerve, as it takes in a scent, it crosses the blood-brain barrier and it brings that scent to be recognized. And then the fragrance is actually kind of like a feedback loop. So if you think about memories, and if I say to you, you know, what was it like being in your grandma's kitchen? You may think of a smell first before the memory comes, or they may come at the same time. So those are very closely linked. So that's why I was saying, when you're creating a ritual, be sure to bring in all of your senses, you know, whether it's something like, you know, soft feather, or whether it's an aroma like from a candle or from an essential oil, that helps lock in the memory. The education that I got around the aroma freedom was about this memory making machine. So our minds are constantly trying to make sense out of what our experience is. And it's kind of like we go out and visually, audibly, internally take in all this data, and it's like a giant meal. And we're trying to digest it. And so that's that process that our storage system is working on. So it's staying kind of like in our short-term storage, and it's looking through it. So it has a process, which if you've ever had a really bad conversation with a loved one, you already know this is true, because for the next couple of days, you're like, well, they said this, and then I said this. Oh, I should have said this. This is what I should have said. And then, oh, then they rolled their eyes. Oh my gosh, I can't. And then the TV was too loud and they couldn't hear me, and we had another miscommunication. Like, you're already doing the replay quite a bit, you know, whether it's when you first wake up or while you're washing the dishes. So that's why I was saying, take control of that process so that you're steering that ship, you're the editor of that process. But that's part of the brain's function, is it's going through all of that data. It's sorting through what we're designating as important. And again, it's closely linked to emotion as well as scent. And then it's storing it. And like I said, it stores the majority of it that we've claimed, and it still keeps the rest of it, but we just don't have as easy access to it. So when I'm working with clients, I'm usually putting them in a hypnotic or a meditative state to help them recall some of that extra data, because sometimes it does get lost in the heat of the moment with emotions. So for example, you know, if you're fighting with someone and you're having that discussion, you may think that you were very clear in what you said, and then when you return to maybe reconcile with them, they're like, you never said that. That's not what you said. You may have to get a third party in there, you know, someone that has no emotional attachment, and they're like, oh yeah, you skipped over that completely. So our memories are a little bit faulty, because when we're in that process of making sense of things, we're making a story, and we're really good, creative, inventive story makers. And so sometimes we might ad-lib some things in there, and then the more we repeat it to ourselves, the more it becomes true to us. So again, if you think about like a car accident, they ask multiple witnesses. They like to have multiple witnesses, because the two people that were involved, or three people, however many, but it's usually two, they are in a state of shock. They are overwhelmed by the physiological things that are going on in their body, as well as their emotional state. That clouds their access to what just happened, because they haven't had that digestion time. So they like to pull other people in and have different points of view. Same thing in our minds when we are going through all of the pieces of a memory and we're formulating it. We are cherry picking, and we're like, okay, well, I had that one zinger where I really made them think about what I said, you know, or maybe it's on the positive side, like maybe you gave an incredible speech and all you remember is how they clapped and they cheered for you at the end. You may actually edit out and forget how you went to the microphone and it didn't work. And then when you started talking, you started stuttering, and then you started coughing, and then you had to start all over, and they had you leave the stage. You may forget all of that because the emotional high of the positive kind of erases some of the less important things. That was the other thing I learned, was the bigger, more intense the emotion is, the more likely we are to remember it, positive or negative. And like I said, we tend to write a little story with it. So the story may be true. It's our truth, but it may not be everyone's truth. There may have been some embellishments, or because of the way we've edited it, it may not look true to others.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for all of that. That is greatly appreciated and interesting. And, you know, it really, that is really something that we can use and harness, like you're talking about, in ritual, and to, you know, bring that knowledge into our own ritual practice. I love it. One thing I also really love that you said earlier was equating ritual to a recipe and saying, hey, you know, like a recipe, you can do your own thing with it. And so I'm wondering, when it comes to the recipe, you know, sometimes with a recipe, you can make substitutions, and sometimes that's not such a good idea. So are there certain things, elements of ritual? It sounds from what you're saying to us that intention is key, but are there other things that are essential to the recipe that we really shouldn't or couldn't substitute, or is really anything up for substitution?
That's a great question, Christian. For me, it always goes back to intention. So I've been on site in places where I wanted to do a ritual, like I wanted to do a blessing, you know, for a room or a group of people. And we're in a place where there's a fire marshal, or there's a sign on the door, there's a fire alarm above my head. So I'm not going to light my sage and set things off and stand under the sprinklers just so that we can get the ritual. So again, sometimes finding those substitutions, just like, you know, if you are out of butter, you might use vegetable oil. It may not turn out exactly the same, but with rituals, I feel like if your intention is there, that's going to maybe fill in the gaps where you don't have something. I personally like to try to bring in all 4 elements. And this is just something that I started naturally falling into. I have several friends who are shaman. So I think it's from hanging out with shaman that I've gotten more connected to all of the elements. So I like to, when I sit down, and this is my personal spiritual practice, I say a prayer, because I feel like a prayer kind of clears things out. So again, this might be something, it's optional. It goes back to intention. Maybe you just set the intention in your mind. I feel like there's more power when you bring it outside of your body. You're able to hear yourself internally and externally. And so saying a prayer or making a statement about what the ritual is for. And I say this little prayer and I bring in the elements. And so I say, I've got a little candle and I light the candle. Then I bring in the element of wind and I waft the candle so I can smell it. And for those of you that can't see the video, because we're only audio, I'm playing with a feather and I've got a beautiful candle here. And then I am usually seated on the ground. And so I speak to Mother Earth and thank her. And then I usually have some sort of beverage and I take a sip at the very end. So I say, thank you, fire, when I light the candle, for your light. When I use the feathers, thank you, wind, for helping scent take flight. As I notice that I'm sitting down and I'm grounded, thank you, earth, for holding me up. And then as I drink my beverage, which usually contains water, I say, thank you, water, for filling me up. Super simple, but just the acknowledgement. And again, I'm bringing in some sensory. I'm being present with what is. And again, I'm connecting to all the things that make up our beautiful planet, that make up our earth. So I would say, other than your own internal intention, if you're able to speak something out loud, especially if there's a group, because it has such a unifying force, and it doesn't have to be a rhyming prayer like Laura does. It can be something as simple as, we're all gathered here today to honor Christian on his special birthday, and we are so delighted to see all of you here to celebrate with us. Something just as a welcome, and again, stating why we're all coming together.
That is so beautiful. I absolutely loved that little prayer that you just gave. I could feel the energy in it. And even in just that short little blessing, it really was beautiful. So thank you. And I do want to share with listeners that Laura did offer a prayer before we began, and it was very beautiful. You know, speaking about ritual, here we were engaging in a ritual before our chat. And I just want to say that the energy of it was so very beautiful and very moving and touching. And so was that. So I want to say thank you so much for bringing us those gifts and bringing your energy as well to this chat. So thank you so much.
So welcome. You're so welcome. Yeah, otherwise, I think with your recipe, it's your recipe. So if I love essential oils and they're a total turnoff for you, but you love candles, use a candle. If you don't like candles, if there's something else, maybe you have some fresh herbs from your garden, use that. If you don't have any of those and you skip over the step of fragrance, you're still, even if you're just pausing and just noticing the fragrance of the air around you, noticing that you have the ability to smell, that's plenty. So again, the substitutions, I think when we're making a ritual, are not quite as critical as when we're baking like Christmas cookies. If you skip the eggs, they don't turn out. But with a ritual, if you skip, you know, the oils or the feathers, you're going to be okay.
Great. And that, it was such a great example too, that you offered of, you know, lighting your sage right below a smoke alarm, maybe not the best thing. And it's okay to do away with that element in the ritual at that time. Great.
Absolutely.
So yeah, can you share with us some more of your rituals? I'd love to hear about some of your rituals and more about your ritual practice.
Absolutely. So I am a writer. And I am, like most writers, I'm an intermittent writer, which means when I have a deadline and I'm working with a group, I can totally get something done. And otherwise, I write for my own enjoyment. Like I said, I write a lot for reflection. And I love writing poetry. I have a poetry group that I'm a part of. So I decided that I wanted to find a shortcut to getting into the zone, getting in the flow of writing, because they talk about this horrible thing, and the more they talk about it, the more it becomes true, which is that BLOCK word around writing. And I don't believe that's true, for me at least. So what I know about the neuroplasticity of our brain is that when you take it through a ritual, the brain gets really happy. It's like, oh, okay. It's like on a car ride. It's like, oh, okay. We passed that store. We were gone over the river. I know where we're going. I know where we're going. And it starts to amp up, and it starts to bring online all of the programs, all of the hormones, all of the physiology you need to do the thing. So I decided that I was going to build a super on-ramp for my brain to get into my writing zone. So first of all, I did a little meditation, and I asked to see if there was a guide for me, because you need a writing coach, right? And you can't, some of us may or may not want to hire one. I wanted one that was just on demand instantly. So I figured there was probably an angel or some ancient or some ancestor that could help me. So I did a meditation one morning, and I closed my eyes and I called one in, and it was the funniest thing, Christian. He stepped forward. He looked a little bit like one of the characters out of the Three Musketeers. So he was wearing those super puffy pants and the puffy white blouse, and then like a waistcoat, and it was belted. And all of that was in royal blue, which that's not lost on me. That is the color of the third eye chakra, which is our imagination. He had a big hat on with a long blue plumy type feather. And as he greeted me, he took the hat off and he bowed low and he said, "Welcome, my lady, I'm at your service." And I said, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jehoshaphat." And I was like, okay, either I lost my mind or this is working. So I was like, awesome. I have a guide now. So he and I had some funny dialogues about how he was going to help me, but I came to realize he was going to be on demand. So to call him into my energy, I realized I needed to, again, just like if you were going to get online with a coach, you might get on Zoom, or you might need to dial some digits to get on the line with a coach on the phone. I needed to dial things up. So I asked myself, I looked back at like my most successful times of writing, like what was I doing? You know, success leaves clues, right? So I was like, okay, well, I was sitting in this chair. I was sitting in this spot in my house. I had a warm beverage. Oh, every 5 minutes I had to go to the restroom. Okay, so I need to go to the restroom first. So again, it's kind of like that recipe making. You're pulling things out and you're trying to find the right fit. So I created a ritual. It's multiple steps. And part of what I do is I specifically wrote a poem to call in Jehoshaphat to be my guide for my writing session. So my ritual looks a little bit like this. It's kind of like a little kid going to bed. First step, go to the bathroom. Go to the restroom, because your body's going to be like, hey, we want to distract you. Hey, I know you're trying to do a ritual, but we got something important for you to do. So step one, go to the restroom. Step two, get a beverage, because my little distracted mind wants to pause and wants some sips. And it's a really nice way to stay in the moment without leaving the room or, losing your place. So I get a beverage. Number three, I put on some essential oil. And I have a lot of different essential oil blends. Some work better for different things. The brand that I use is called Young Living. And my two favorites, number one is one called Envision. And again, it really helps me tap into my imagination. It feels like my mind opens up. Another one that I use is called Magnify Your Purpose. So it depends on what I'm writing. If I'm just going to do something creative and maybe write poetry, I might do Envision. But if I'm writing for clients, if I'm writing part of the book that I'm working on, I really want to pull up a different kind of energy. So I will inhale some of the oil, and I have people ask, well, why do you inhale it? Why don't you just diffuse it? Well, if you're going to get drunk in the spirit, do you want a tequila shot, or do you want it over ice mixed with some rum punch? I want it straight. And again, when we inhale an oil, it crosses over the blood-brain barrier, and it goes straight to our emotional center, and it puts one molecule of that oil in, 40,000 molecules of that oil in every one of our 75 trillion cells. So it gets me online. So if you think about football players doing their warm-up before they play on the field, that's what I'm doing with all of my cells. I'm like, we're doing our warm-up, get ready. Then the next thing I do is I read a poem, and it's a poem that I've written that beckons in and calls in Jehoshaphat. And I light a candle. So again, maybe I don't have all of the elements. I don't have a feather, but Jehoshaphat has one in his hat. So I think we've got all the elements in there. But again, I found, like I said, that my monkey mind wants to jump around. So I have to have a few things for it to do. So that's part of what the ritual helps do. It helps calm down that sympathetic nervous system that's in a drive, like let's hurry up and get it done. It slows it down a little. And then I've got a few little things with me, like I might have some snacks there. I have something to sip. So as I am writing and I pause, I'm not telling myself, oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I don't have anything else. No, I'm taking a break. Taking a little sip break, I'm taking another hit of oil, I'm pausing and allowing a pace to come to me as it does. And then when I get done with my process, I have another part of the poem, and these sound like they're very complicated, y'all. My poems are usually like 4 lines, and they all rhyme because it helps me remember them. So I have a second part of the poem, and it's kind of like if you opened up the Zoom and you had a coaching call with Jehoshaphat, you would close the Zoom. So I feel that part of the process of building that neural pathway is also bringing gratitude in the process. So when I am saying the second part of the prayer, I'm acknowledging that Jehoshaphat was there. I'm acknowledging myself. I'm acknowledging what has happened, and I'm expressing gratitude for it. So that heightened positive emotion helps lock in the memory of what I've just done. And so again, if you think of that you're building a highway in your mind, like I said, this on-ramp to get on this highway where you can write very easily, what you're doing here with that gratitude is you're smoothing it out. You're really smoothing it out, and you're making it an easier access for the next time that you do it. So that's one of them. I have several, Christian, but that's one of my favorites because, like I said, Jehoshaphat appeared to me and I was like, what the what? We had a long discussion about why I use straws. So he's a very interesting guide. Like, what is this physical conveyance for the liquid? Why must you use this?
Wow. That sounds like so much fun. I loved it. And your ritual, what I really like about it, well, I like multiple things about it, but I love this closing to it as well, to really almost, not even almost, but yes, to give it this kind of bubble-like feel to it and experience, to have that closing at the end as a closure, like, shutting down the computer, turning off everything, and it's ending, the transmission is done, kind of a thing. I really like that a lot. So thank you for sharing that with us, because, it is so true that rituals oftentimes will include just naturally even that need for that sense of closure and that closing. So I appreciate that. You mentioned Reiki earlier, and many listeners are Reiki practitioners. And so, when we have Reiki sessions, those in and of themselves are very ritualistic, and we have, however it is that we might do it, we have ways of closing the session. And so here you are in this session having an off ramp to close it. And I love that. So thank you so much for talking about that and sharing that great ritual with us. I think for anyone listening, it would maybe be no wonder that, of course, you would not have writer's block, because you've got this whole ritual to get you going and to encapsulate that experience. So thank you for sharing that with us. That was really awesome.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I
Yeah.
said, you can ritualize anything, and I encourage people, my clients, if there's something that they're trying to do that's new, that they're going to feel awkward about, or it's not going to feel smooth, I encourage them to slow down and ritualize parts of it and to try to bring in something, like I said, meaningful, or if you can bring in fun. What we want is a positive, heightened emotion. So, let's say that you absolutely hate cleaning up at the end of the day. Maybe that the house is a mess, but you've made a commitment to yourself. You're always going to pick up everything and straighten the house, before you go to bed. So the two things I ask myself when I'm trying to create a habit is, how can I make this easy and how can I make this fun? And the fun tends to make it easy. And so again, with the ritual, if you're able to incorporate an emotion, to bring an emotion on board or tap into one from the activities that you're doing, that really helps lock in the ritual. And like I said, as you can see from my last one, me reading a silly little poem and thinking of my silly little memory makes me laugh, and I'm in a heightened positive state. And that's the state that things are created from, is being like a little kid, right?
Yes, wonderful. I love it. And this is so much interesting information and insight on ritual. So thank you so much. In your own life, what kinds of maybe even benefits have you experienced from ritual, or have you even maybe witnessed in the lives of your clients?
For myself personally, like I'll speak to both. So for myself personally, one of the most useful rituals I have is a ritual for transmuting negative emotions. So as a young person, I had parents that, because of an older sister with a lot of health concerns, they were emotionally unavailable. As a result, I did not learn how to modulate my emotions. So they went all over the place. So when I think about emotional modulation, I think about building some nice banks along a river so that the river can flow easily and it can move and you can harness that energy. So I didn't really learn about how to deal with bad emotions. Like most people, I thought, well, they're bad, so we should just ignore them. Or if they're bad, we need to put them in a lockbox and we need to stick them in the basement. The only problem with that is those emotions, if they stay in your body, they create disharmony and disease. They can create physical pain. So one of the new modalities that I was trained in a long time ago, but I'm bringing back online, is called emotion code. And it speaks a lot to this, where if you have, if you think about it, like think about a little kid that's in kindergarten and they're just bouncing in their seat and they're just like tapping, they've got energy in their body that they want to get out. That's what I think of when we have emotions, good or bad. It's in our body, it's trying to come out and get expressed. So when we have negative ones, they can be very destructive internally. So when I deal with being angry or being mad or sad or frustrated, like I said, I didn't have mentors as a young person to know how to do that. So I've had to mentor myself. And when you're mad, you'll say, oh, I want to burn everything down, or, oh, I'm so mad, I'm just burning up. Well, those phrases come to mind because the energy of anger can feel like a flame. You're very passionate. Passion on the positive side is you're putting energy into maybe a project or a book or a relationship. But passion on the negative side is, again, like a burning flame that may destroy things. So I decided that I was going to lean into the fiery flame, and I am an Aries, which we're a fire sign. And so the first time I got really, really upset, I was so dysregulated, I had no idea what to do. And I called a friend and they said, get it out of your body. And I was like, okay. So I sat at a park and, did the ugly crying, sat there by myself and just wrote page after page after page. And part of the process was to write it out without any judgment of myself. I could judge others, but I wasn't going to tell them, but I couldn't judge myself. So if I'm angry at someone and I'm like, well, that person was mean, then I'm not going to come back and go, oh, you shouldn't say they're mean. They're really nice most of the time. So none of that, just really getting at a guttural level where you're purging, kind of like if you had food poisoning. You wouldn't judge the food and go, oh, that lobster didn't mean to hurt you. You would just be trying to get it out of your body so that you feel better. So I wrote and wrote and wrote. And then I was in a park. And so I was like, I need to get rid of this. Like, I don't even want these pages. Like, I could feel the energy off of it. And so there was a little creek nearby. So I went and I shredded it into the teeniest tiny pieces I could. And I released it into the water, which was satisfying at the time. But I found more satisfaction in other things. But if you look at that example, what was happening, like I said, was I had something internally, a bunch of energy, and I brought it out onto the page. I made it real. I acknowledged it. I witnessed myself, didn't judge myself. And then with more energy, the energy it takes to shred everything. And then the last part was releasing it and then accepting that that was done. I very intuitively did that before I moved into the field that I'm in now, where I understand a lot more about all of those steps. So now what I do, I had a very upsetting situation that was beyond my control. And again, when I get angry, it feels like I've swallowed a beehive. So I feel like I have all these little bees running around inside of me, and I just want them out of my body. So I sit down and I write everything out. I have a beautiful lily pond in my backyard, but I have found that fire for me personally. So again, as you're writing your own recipe here, fire may not be your favorite thing. You may like the water better, but I like to burn it. And part of the reason I like to burn it is because it takes time. And so I sit there and watch it, and I visually absorb its physical transformation. I'm watching something that was energy in my mind, energy in my body. It became writing on a page, a page that was very tangible. It is now turning to ash, and it is almost nothingness. It's turning into fire. It's changing energy. So again, energy is never destroyed nor created. It's only transformed or transmuted. So to watch that process is very cathartic. And then because I'm next to my pond is a very loving sanctuary, and it has very good energy there. I feel like all of my loved ones, like my departed grandfather, my dogs, I feel like their energies are there. I've seen angels there, all sorts of fun things. So my pond to me is almost like an old friend. So I asked the pond, would you please take this from me? Would you please take this away from me? So I don't have a pile of ashes next to my pond. So the last step is I sweep it into the pond. And by doing so, I'm acknowledging to myself, it is done. I release it. It's completely gone. It's not a teeny tiny little scrap that's going to clog up some filter on the river, but rather the energy's been transmuted. And so I really like doing that for me. It brings me such peace. It allows me to honor my true feelings, even if they're ugly and gross and maybe not even justified, but I'm letting myself have that moment. And I'm not worried about the other person, and I'm not worried about resolving the conflict with them. I'm focusing on getting back to building peace within myself, loving myself, and allowing myself to have that moment.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What a lovely and powerful practice. So thank you so much. So Laura, is there anything else that you would like to say about ritual, and where can people get in touch with you?
Thank you, Christian. Well, the lesson that I learned most recently was around Reiki and around offering Reiki to my client, Molly. She's 97 years old, and we had been together for 8 years. She was originally my personal training client. She was wheelchair bound, so we modified a workout program for her to stay strong for her activities of daily living. And as she moved into the last year of her life, she developed Alzheimer's. So we did a lot of art therapy and music therapy, and I pulled heart cards for her, and we'd have conversations, and she'd tell me about her life, the parts that she could remember. So I really wanted to be with her all the way to the end. It felt really important to me to honor the friendship that we had. And so I did some things that were native to me, that made sense to me, but I knew that they may not make sense to others. So I think part of, when you practice a ritual, your own ritual around others, is just having that awareness and offering them, building a little bridge is what I'm thinking of, to giving them some context and understanding what you're doing. And again, this is not spiritually shaming. I'm not saying you're a weirdo and you need to make everyone understand you. No one's ever going to completely understand you because we're all unique. But to give them some context and also to set the tone. That's stating your intention. So when I delivered some Reiki to Molly, she had a caregiver there. So I went to her caregiver and I said, I'm about to do some Reiki. This is what it is, and this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to lay my hands on her, and I'm going to use some essential oils, and there's going to be a healing energy that'll flow through me that will support her with whatever she needs. Her spirit, her soul will decide how it's applied. And I said, I'm just here for her to feel at peace and calm. So that really helps set the stage for the Reiki to be delivered. And I said prayers, silently, and in a beautiful moment, it felt like Molly was joining me in the prayer, almost like she was rhyming with me, which she's a very playful creature. So that felt very natural. I also went and told the family, because they were in the other room, what I'd done, because again, you don't know what you're doing and how it appears to others. So I wanted them to understand my intention, and my intention was peace for her and peace for that household. So when I came back again on the day she was passing, I kind of got a little nudge. I feel like it was from her because she was already crossing over. Maybe it was my higher self, maybe it was my guide. It doesn't matter. I just was prompted like, hey, she's not the only one that needs Reiki. The room needs Reiki. Everybody needs Reiki. So I realized in that moment that that I could serve in another way. And so again, two of her granddaughters were there. I know them, they know me. They already knew a little bit about Reiki. And I just told them, I said, I'm going to give her some Reiki. I said, and then I'm just going to sit at the end of the bed and I'll continue on. And I said, I'm just going to put Reiki in the room and surrounding her. And I did what I did. I had a beautiful vision and I felt very at peace. I felt she was very at peace, and I felt like it was time for me to go. And I didn't need any feedback. I didn't need to know I'd done a good job or that's the right thing. I knew in my heart that was the right thing for me and Molly, for our relationship. However, I did have the blessing of being able to connect with her granddaughter. I'd offered all the family Reiki sessions for them to help work through their grief, because I think Reiki is a very beautiful practice that could help soothe their nervous system at the very least. So when her granddaughter came for a session and we got done, she gave me the feedback. She said that her cousin, the other granddaughter there, asked, what's Laura doing? She said, Reiki, what is she doing? And Nicole said, she's clearing the path for Big Molly to go home. And I'm giving myself chills, I'm about to cry. That's when I realized the power of the ritual. So it doesn't have to be completely eloquently spoken into an intention. If you're holding that intention in your heart, that's the vibration you're sending out. And everybody reads each other's energy, whether they're advanced readers or they're beginning readers. Everyone reads that energy. So they all knew what was going on. And that's what I encourage the listeners to take away is, your rituals may seem like they're just for you, but they have a power beyond you. So even if you're sitting by your pond, dusting ashes into the water, you're letting go of something that is painful, and you are bringing yourself, you're elevating your own energy, and you are honoring Mother Earth. That's elevating the entire earth, a consciousness of the entire earth with just your own act. When you are being loving and kind, in the line at the grocery store, you don't have to send everybody Reiki. You don't have to say a thing, but if you are emanating that loving kindness, you may notice around you that people relax their shoulders. that the cashier doesn't seem so rushed. You are having a positive impact on people with everything that you're doing, especially your rituals. And you don't have to tell them everything that you're doing. They get it on that energetic level. So I encourage people to follow their intuition, to write their own recipes for their rituals, and to honor themselves first and know that they are making a bigger impact in the vibrational energy of all those around them. And to reach me, to finish up what he said, I am in a variety of places. I think Christian will include all of those in the notes on YouTube. However, I am on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Laura Wall _TX on Instagram. And that's LAURAWALL _TX. Same handle. And I am on Clubhouse. I enjoy being in rooms there. There's a lot of speaking and ideas, and it's a fantastic place to be. I'm occasionally on Facebook, so it's Laura Wall. And then I am also a podcaster. So I have a podcast called The Guru Is You. It's a podcast that's about different modalities of healing that individuals have found that have helped them through their own healing journey. So it's not a bunch of experts telling you what you're supposed to do. It's personal accounts, individual stories, and how powerful they are. And there's so many healing modalities out there. So it really thrills me to be able to do that. Those interviews, and that is on all the places you can find podcasts. So Anchor, Apple, Google, you name it, it's out there. And then let's see, last but not least, I'm on YouTube, same handle, Laura Wall _TX on YouTube. And they're now using handles on YouTube. I don't know if you've gotten the notice, Christian, but that's an @ And then if you're interested in booking my services, I'd suggest you go and take a look at Instagram. I've got a link in my bio with all the things I do, or you can go to my organization's website, which is www.heartsofhealingcenter.org. Okay, that's all the things. Thank you, Christian.
Well, all of those things are wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing them. And thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge, all of your experiences, all of your insights, not only on ritual, but on all kinds of things. So Laura, this has been really interesting, really engaging. And I just want to say thank you so very much for joining us on Chats Along the Path.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you all so much for listening. Such an honor to have you here joining us, sending you blessings and best wishes for your journey. Gratitude. Thanks for tuning in to this chat along the path. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for walking the path. Blessings and best wishes for your journey. Ritual. Silence.